All right. And in a moment, we should start to see guests filter in. Okay, I see Alina is on the line. Okay. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Hi, Wendy. Great to see you. We're just going to give it about 30 seconds to give all of our guests a chance to filter in, and then we'll kick things off. All right. Well, maybe I will start with my spiel, and as I'm going, more folks will be joining. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our Lunch and Learn webinar, Scary Stories for Business series. My name is Shana Furlong. I'm the president and CEO of the Richmond Chamber of Commerce. And before we begin, I'd just like to acknowledge that the Richmond Chamber of Commerce operates on the traditional territory of the Musqueam First Nation. We're very grateful that we can gather and work on this land. They have lived on this land for millennia, and I would like to acknowledge the Indigenous territories you are joining us from today as well. So I think some of our most memorable learning comes from cautionary tales. So the horror stories that we never want to repeat in our own lives, or those signposts along the way. So this October, we've been very pleased to bring you some chilling tales and lessons you can learn from them. Before we begin, we have some housekeeping items for you. Everyone's on mute right now, but we are encouraging questions, so you can submit those via the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. But we would also love to see you on camera if you're feeling brave enough for this. So please raise your hand towards the end of the presentation if you'd like to hop on camera. We will bring you on. So both ways would be wonderful. Q&A function or raise your hand so you can hop on camera. If you run into any technical problems during the presentation, please reach out during the chat function so I can work on those for you. And now that our housekeeping is out of the way, it's my pleasure to introduce our presenter today. He is not very scary, but he's going to be sharing some chilling tales with us. James Lee is the founder of LiveHolystic Coaching and Consulting. For as long as he can remember, James has been fascinated by human development and has been on a quest to answer two key questions. What makes for a successful life, and what makes people change? Big questions. He thought he had all the answers as he spent 2 decades of his life traveling the world and rapidly gaining success and recognition across various businesses, creative and spiritual spaces. Little did he know that he was slowly breaking apart inside and losing himself to unhealthy coping mechanisms and addictions. When he was finally able to confront the signs of unhealth in his life, he discovered that his view of success had been severely narrow and a new approach to living was required. He would embark on his own personal transformation journey, and after years of road testing his new way of living, James started LiveHolystic Coaching to help people redefine what a truly successful life looks like and show them an alternate, more holistic approach to life. James is originally from Sydney, Australia, and currently resides here in Richmond with his wife and 2 sons. He loves exploring the outdoors, meeting new people, and playing music in a band. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce James. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Shana. And yeah, thank you to you and the Richmond Chamber for having me here. Great to meet you all. I was going to ask you, what my accent was. People could type that in, but Shana's given it away. It's okay. Well, in the chat, absolutely. What I'd love you to put in is, what's your favorite fall activity, like autumn activities? So that can include eating, by the way. So what do you love doing in the fall? It has been a change in season. It is getting a bit colder. But I'd love to hear from you as you're putting that in. my favorite fall activity actually is the crunchy leaves. It's something that I am not used to back in Australia and Sydney, and so yeah, absolutely, that's something that I love about the fall. And I'd also love you to put in the chat, what are you hopeful for today? What are you hoping from today? You didn't have to be here. You've definitely come by choice. But yeah, once you've done the fall activity, yeah, what is something that you're hoping for today? Whether that's some learning, some specific question that you have on your heart that you've been wanting an answer to. Love to yeah, invite your thoughts in the chat. So I'm seeing, yeah, running in the cool weather. Absolutely love that. Needing waterproof shoes, Shana, isn't it? Alina's put in looking at the beautiful trees when it's not raining. I absolutely, yeah, it's something about the colors that are awesome. Well, yes, so I am from Sydney. My parents are Malaysian Chinese, and they met in New Zealand before coming to Sydney and having myself and my siblings. And now we've actually relocated. My wife and I and two boys have relocated to Canada. So I'm kind of like, I don't know how to describe myself. Sometimes I'm Australian, Malaysian, Chinese, Canadian. But anyway, we'll get into more of my story in a moment. And what I would like to start with is just kind of a guide for today. So here we go. One ask of you is that for all of us to be present to this moment and to raise your expectation. You know, I'm not really into this space of just information. I'm really into the area of transformation. And for information that can really be sent, if people want information, they can come to the website. They can read different articles. But what I'm really, my primary work is in the area of transformation. And I know actually a big part of that is engagement and being present. So I'm really about co-creating an environment where you may get a breakthrough, that you may get a next step where you're feeling stuck. You may get an aha moment, an insight that could really shift your personal and professional life. So my one request and my one ask up front is that you would be present to this moment. And for you know, some of you, I think I would encourage yeah, some discomfort. You know, I've noticed that being able to step into discomfort is actually where we can grow. And so whether that's putting your face on camera, whether that's asking a question, whether that's sharing a thought in the chat, whatever that step looks like for you, I really invite that. As Shana mentioned, I'm not spooky or scary, but this really is a safe, trusted environment that I hope that you can explore and take that step. So I'm actually going to invite you, wherever you are, in helping being present, is just to take a deep breath. And so athletes have this thing, the 4-7-8, where it's breathe in for 4 through your nostrils, hold for 7, and then slowly breathe out for 8. So we're going to do that. I'm going to invite you to do that in the comfort of wherever you are. You can close your eyes if that helps, but it's more about the deep breathing. So we're going to take a deep breath for 4, hold it for 7, and slowly breathe out for 8. We're going to do that again. If it helps, you can hold your hand on your belly as you breathe in for 4. Deep breath in, hold for 7. Slowly breathe out for 8. We're just going to do that one more time. Breathe in for 4, hold for 7, and breathe out for 8. Let's go. Hold for 7. Breathe out for 8. Okay. So we are talking about true success today. And if there's one takeaway or one kind of first thing to write down, would be things aren't what they seem. So I'm going to show you something here. So what do you see here. And I want you to type away in the chat. What do you see? What do you see in this picture? You can also unmute yourself if you'd like to say it out loud. A logo, yes. So FedEx logo. Anyone else? Can they see anything else there? Does anyone see the arrow? Does anyone see the arrow there? Between the E and the X. Has anyone ever seen that before? Yeah, so FedEx, about delivery. So it's interesting that we can, oh, sorry if I missed a hand, but please feel free to unmute and jump in as well. But yes, there is an arrow there in the EX. All right. Next one. What do you see here? Feel free again, whether you want to yell it out or type in the chat. What do you see here in the second picture? A girl. Okay, Alina's yes. I see. Does anyone see anything else? Okay, does anyone see the elderly woman? So here, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but here's like the nose, her nose. This is the mouth, and it's, yeah, Wendy's saying yes, you can see. Yeah, so interesting, like things aren't what they seem, okay? Now we've got the juices flowing. Here's a third one. Okay, which line is longer? The top one or the bottom one? So the horizontal line. Mohammed, you know it. Have you done this before, mate? They actually are equal. Isn't that just a spin out? They are equal. And so this is the first kind of point, if you like, or first takeaway. When we're thinking about success, or we're thinking about, yeah, what true success is, things aren't what they seem. And sometimes we do need a reality check. Does anyone remember this moment from 2022 at the Golden Globes, where we see Will Smith slap Chris Rock, just walk up to the stage and slap him on TV, on live recording. There's a moment where you're like, I don't know where you were or what you felt when you saw that, but there was just a moment of, whoa. And I'm not casting any judgment on Will Smith. He has his own life, and there's details there that I don't know about, but wasn't there just a bit of a reality check, a sense of, wow, things aren't what they seem for someone who would be famous, someone who you would think is successful, that has it all there, to suddenly slap someone. There's got to be stuff going on under the surface. And so a question that already comes up for me around this is, what picture of success are we holding up? So for each of us, what picture of success are we holding up to the world? And if I take that to maybe another level, is, are we upholding a shell of success or living out the substance of success? Are we upholding kind of this shell, this outer appearance of success, kind of pursuing that? Or are we actually living the substance of success? Do we hold up a picture of perfection? Do we feel, even maybe as a leader or a business owner, that we got to be a role model, this kind of perfect role model for our business, our partners, our team, our staff, our customers, our clients, our friends, our families, that there's a picture and a perfection maybe of success that we are holding up? Maybe we're showing metrics that look really good, but maybe we're not showing other ones that may not look so good. And so, you know, why do we do this? And why do we still go after the shell when probably intellectually we're thinking, I want to live a substantial life. I want to live the substance of success. I'm not really worried about appearances. I don't worry about cars. I don't worry about big property and successful businesses. Some of you may even balk at the whole Will Smith thing because, like, yeah, that's what celebrities do. I'm not into that kind of stuff. But there is something that keeps drawing us to the shell of success. And I want to offer some understanding behind that, some grace, if you will, both to make sense of the Will Smith situation, but also maybe for us as well. And understanding why the shift from the shell to the substance of success is quite hard. And so the first one is our picture of success is determined by others, tends to be determined by others. We're shaped in the picture of success, this shell of success. Can anyone think of, you can type in the chat, maybe for your family, what is a picture of success that you grew up with? It might not have been explicitly told by your parents or people around you, but maybe what was success, the measure of success that they had for you, that you grew up with? I know for me, it was to study hard, get a high-paying job, have job security. That was a big piece coming from a migrant family. And so that was kind of like, okay, I need to perform well in school. So feel free to type in the chat, what is a picture of success that you grew up with? And so why we don't shift from the shell to the substance, the first one is, success is determined by others. And so it's almost like, have you ever been in a treadmill? You're running, but it's almost like someone has set the pace and someone has set the incline. And all we're doing is we just need to keep up with it. And sometimes feels that way. Or maybe you can type in the chat, what is maybe a societal picture of success that you were given? So maybe that is to have X million in revenue. Maybe that was to have a certain number of followers or connections. Maybe that was to have a certain amount of money in your bank account. Maybe that was to have a certain, number of properties in ownership. And so, again, what was the picture of success you were given? So the second thing is, a reason we don't shift from the shell to the substance is we tend to be limelight and highlight reel attracted people. And it's almost like the picture of a moth to a flame. We're attracted to the big number, the followers, the things that look on the outside. Have you ever gone to someone's home and commented on how amazing the foundations of their home is? Have you ever said, hey, actually, let's check out the basement, like what's going on off foundations? Oh, like those foundations are so sexy. We go to a hotel and no one wants to look at the basement, right? Or I don't know. I don't want to look at the basement. I want to check out the penthouse. I want to go to the top, right? And so there's something in our maybe nature, maybe something in our culture, societal culture, that is attracted to the bigger, the better, the faster, the beautiful, and that we're like moths to a flame. And number 3 is, I've put it as we've developed some unconscious patterns to avoid discomfort and fear. And so I've got this picture of a mountain, and I don't know about you, but sometimes success for me seems really elusive. It's like I get to the top of a mountain, I struggle to get up a mountain, and once I reach the top of what I thought success was, someone then points me to another mountain. It's like, you've just done the mountain. I didn't even celebrate even that journey. I'm now feeling like, oh my goodness, there is another mountain I climb. And it's like, your business may have got to the first year revenue, and then you're like, okay, well, maybe that was good, like what you achieved, but because there's already another mountain, you're already feeling like, it's not good enough. I need to do more, and then we're back, and there's a connection to the treadmill there. We're then back, busying ourselves with different things, and so by default, I want to just offer this thought that we are flowing with a cultural inertia, social inertia towards a shell of success. And hopefully this just gives a level playing field of understanding, not again to cast judgment on different people, not to just maybe for some of us, sometimes we might be self-defeating and blame ourselves for different things of why we're not good enough, why we don't have enough, why our businesses aren't strong enough, or et cetera, et cetera. But the reason where we find it hard to move into this substance is, I mean, I've highlighted various reasons, but there is this inertia. There is this, if you like, river by default that's pushing us a certain way. And so I just want to take a pause there and invite anyone to, be great if you jump on here, you can unmute, but what picture kind of resonates with you at this point? Is it the treadmill? Is it the kind of moth to a flame? Is it the mountain to mountain to mountain to mountain kind of view? I'd love to just take a pause.
So I just want to remind everyone that you have the ability to unmute.
Awesome. Yeah.
Audio mountain to mountain.
Yeah. Mohammed, if you're willing, would you like to share more? And if you're able to, feel free to jump on. But yeah, mountain to mountain. Is there anything else? Yeah, behind that you'd like to? I'd love to hear any elaboration for you, as well as anyone else. Okay, I'm a CEO of a startup. Love that. Love that. Yes, it's this. I get you. This sense of you're doing everything, pretty much. You're involved in everything, and if it's starting out or getting seed funding, and then once you get that and you started developing product, and then it's like, okay, what about customers, and then it's monetizing revenue, and then you start having team, and looking at all those pieces and wanting them to be successful, and then you can just look at other businesses and look at, I'm not $1 billion unicorn company. It's just like those kinds of pieces. I totally get that mountain to mountain feeling.
And James, that mountain to mountain feeling is kind of like hardwired into our biology, isn't it? Like we have this kind of dopamine cycle where, you want your 1-bedroom condo, and then you work really hard, you get it, you see your neighbor, oh, they also have a den. And then that becomes what you want. And maybe you want a car. Taking transit's not as good anymore, but actually you want a better car. And that's kind of just what we do as humans, right?
Absolutely. I joke about McDonald's. So in Australia, by the way, we'd call it Macca's, but I think you call it Mickey-D's, maybe, or maybe you just call it McDonald's here. Anyway, I don't want to assume things about Canadian kind of terminology, but it's kind of that whole thing of I joke about it, getting a large Coca-Cola, right, and just getting upsized. I was like, oh no, my car cup holders aren't big enough. I now need to get a bigger car, and then you get a bigger car. It's like, oh, my garage is not big enough for the car. I need another house. And so it's just funny how we can, even like different things in our lives, getting the bigger requires us to then adjust the rest of our life. And so yeah, thanks also for sharing that, Shana, as well. Just that reality, that human experience of us maybe not being content, us wanting more and never feeling like enough is enough. So again, yeah, just appreciating the thoughts there. I want to share a bit, my pictures of success. And so what was I upholding? Like, what was I holding up to the world? I've included insurance. So I actually, part of my journey, I started out as an actuary. So that's very much data science, analytics, probabilities. I worked in insurance. So I'm the person like pricing, working out claim patterns, working out how much or when there's going to be bushfire or how often a certain incident would happen. And so I was very involved in businesses. I actually worked in consulting as well. Then moved into financial services at a big bank in Australia, running business, running P&L. Then I was involved in effectively a Shark Tank and won that, and founded a tech startup that we launched in New Zealand. Other pieces, part of my life in parallel was being really involved with next generation work. So I do have a heart for the next generation. And so part of that was working with leaders and across the world, including places like Brazil and Asia. So there was a lot of traveling involved, a lot of mentoring, a lot of meetings, a lot of leadership. And on top of that, if I didn't have, in my spare time, was actually writing music and performing. And so for me, there was this kind of upholding this success, these pictures that people saw. And most people would really look at my life, and it was almost like this role model life of something that was awesome, like everything together, having a family as well, and just having this picture of success. But I want to give you insight into that was the shell of success. That was the picture that people saw. But underneath, I want to be real with you today. I was afraid of failing in front of others. And that led to perfectionism kind of traits and behaviors that I couldn't do something 60%. It had to be 99%. I was afraid of being alone and having difficult conversations and confrontations. And that led me to people-pleasing behaviors, that I wouldn't say no. I was a yes person for everyone and everything. Opportunities would come and I'd say yes. Underneath, I was afraid of not being useful. Bottom line, not being useful. And that led me to high performance, like constant performance, to really cover that up. And afraid of not being valued for me, who I was underneath. And that led me to different addictions, including pornography and workaholism. I think the thing about workaholism is that sometimes it can be applauded. And it's almost like the more that you do, the more it's like, I remember people commenting on, James, how do you do what you do? And I remember it felt like a badge of honor. I now look at that very differently, by the way. But I just want to get real with you that this was happening under the surface. People didn't really know about that. And it wasn't because I was trying to deceive people intentionally. I just honestly didn't know that was happening at some level, because I was caught in this inertia. I was just kept going after the next mountain, the next mountain. And if there was ever a moment where I felt something was difficult, I would just kind of cover that up with just doing the next thing, doing some volunteer work, starting a venture, writing a new song and producing and performing. So I never was able to deal with this discomfort. And that's why I've kind of started out with saying, hey, I invite discomfort. I invite the ability to stay in discomfort, because I believe that's where growth happens. And so part of my transformation journey has actually included this whole idea of taking a pause, and just taking a step back and looking at my life and asking some really hard questions. And the transformation change for me has been 4 years. And what I'm sharing with you is from experience, but is also from like the depths, if I could say the depths of my soul. And it's really about this whole idea of the need to go deep in order to go forward. And I think a lot of what I do see is people talking about change, but often that change tends to be on the shell space. It tends to be on something external. But as we've seen, if we just focus on the external, it's never ending. There's always going to be more. But we actually could be dying inside. There could be something deep in us that we haven't worked on. And something I have that has stuck with me is this phrase of whatever we don't transform, we transfer. And I think having children, and whether we have children or not, like I think thinking about next generation often has allowed me to really think about, okay, if I don't transform this stuff going on deep within me, I just pass that on. I just transfer that either to my kids or the people around me. And I don't want to actually do that if I take a moment to think about it. And so what do we want to transfer to the people around us? Do we want to transfer our baggage? Do we want to transfer just our fears? Do we just want to show them and give them a shell of success? Or do we really want to maybe take a step towards getting under that shell and being able to look at things that actually need to change so that we go towards a long-term change that actually lasts? And so how do we shift then to live this substance of success? How do we actually shift? Well, from my own journey, there's a few things, but one of the first things I'd say is this movement from treadmill to trail. There's kind of this idea of, okay, in a treadmill, at some level, we're stuck. So I don't know if you've ever had that moment where there's a lot of movement in your life, but for some reason you feel stuck. It's like so much is happening, but why do I feel like I'm stuck? And one of the helpful images for me was it's like you're in a treadmill and you're moving. But if you were to take another perspective from outside the gym, for example, from another perspective, you could say you're stuck in the gym, right? And actually, there is life outside the gym. Actually, there is a trail, that there's a different way to live, not to just be on this treadmill, but rather being outside the gym. And maybe that is freedom. By the way, I have nothing against the gym. I go to the gym. But just for analogy purposes, one of those shifts that is required if we want to move outside from the treadmill and move outside the gym, actually, the first thing we need to do is stop. We actually need to stop the treadmill. We can't just jump off it and then walk outside. We actually need to stop. And I wonder if for some of you that this is maybe the best action you can take, to stop and be able to then get off the treadmill and make space for change. And that's what I needed to do. That was the first thing. I needed to step out of some things. I needed to say no to some things, to at least give me kind of some margin in my life to then divert that space and put attention on some of what I'm talking about. Another shift is this movement from the light outside, so this moth to a flame kind of picture, to the light within. And there's kind of this idea of maybe I need to focus on redefining success for me, rather than letting it be determined by others because that's the default. And maybe bigger isn't always better. I heard someone say recently that swelling often means there's an infection or something's broken. So I don't know, maybe that's a thought to consider when it comes to business and our lives and number of followers, that bigger isn't always better. And so what's required to make that shift is to redefine holistic success. And Shani, you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick question. James, can you tell us a little bit more about how you identified the need to take these actions, like the fact that your shell wasn't necessarily aligning with the interior? Because I think it's really easy in modern culture to obviously be working to a high level. All of our chamber members tend to be very high performing people, very driven people. And at what point is there like a crack in that facade? How do we recognize that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Shana. I think it's going to be unique for each individual. I think my overall comment would be to say we don't have to wait for a Will Smith moment to make a change. And I think the one of the most beautiful things about being a human is that we have the ability to self-reflect. It is something that distinguishes us from animals. This ability to step outside of our life and look back in. Isn't that just an amazing gift and an ability that we have? Often we don't use that gift because we have no margin. And so yeah, certain cracks were happening. I remember vividly this moment where I was in New Zealand doing the startup, and I had an opportunity to surprise my family that did visit Canada from Sydney. They just went on a trip, and I was like, oh, I can't make this Canada trip because I'm working. And I remember just saying to someone in New Zealand, oh, I think I might just surprise them. But I remember having a conversation with someone in Sydney that's just like, no, James, you need to do something in Sydney. You're like, and I remember not being able to say no to that person. And I think it was just one of the moments I regret, because it was like my longing was to be a present father and husband, but I was so quick to just say yes. And I think like I said yes to this kind of leadership opportunity. And it just showed me something that was misaligned. So I think that there's more to that, Shana, or different examples, but I think that's the one that kind of was a bit of a moment for me.
Thanks. That's really good insight.
Yeah. And the third thing is, how do we shift? We go from this multiple mountains alone, like this never ending kind of space, and moving to your mountain together. And so what I've realized is a different picture, a different way of thinking about success isn't mountain to mountain to mountain. What if life was meant to be one mountain that was yours, that you were meant to, whether you say go up, whether you were meant to explore it. Maybe it wasn't just to get to the altitude, like maybe it wasn't just to get to the top. Maybe, yeah, the idea was to explore the mountain, to see the beauty. And I think about just my nature has been, and then maybe some of you can resonate, is like, I just want to get to the end of things sometimes. I just want to get things done. And I've been playing old school video games like Super Mario Brothers 3. Raise a hand if you know what I'm talking about, if you've ever played Super Mario Brothers 3, but it's one of my favorite video games of all time. But I recognize that I'm like a speedrunner. I just want to get to the end. When, in fact, some of the great things about this video game is you can explore different mysteries in the game. And that's what really brings richness to the game. And I just wonder if sometimes in life, because we are so needing to get to the next mountain, we do miss out on these explorations and these mysteries and these secrets and these beautiful colors. And so I want to, yeah, and I'm saying this mounted together and getting the best support. So I don't say this lightly, but I say support is super important in our journey, especially if we want to make a shift, because if we've been going at a certain pattern of life, both personally and professionally, to suddenly make a shift, actually that's really difficult, and I would argue is pretty much near impossible in terms of long-lasting shift. And part of that's to do with our brain, and I won't get into the neuroscience of it at the moment, but there are deep patterns in us that in order to shift them, it does take time. And so I absolutely am a proponent of support, whether that's counseling, coaching, advising, mentoring, etc. And I just want to maybe share a distinction that may be helpful for some of you. Even the difference between counseling and coaching. Counseling tends to be more past focused, present to past, and really about healing deep trauma, hurts. Coaching tends to be more present to future. There absolutely is overlap there. Mentoring, as another distinction, is kind of someone who has gone up, maybe say mountain, and they're just giving you tips on how to get up the same mountain if you want to. Most of my work is primarily I'll engage people at coach level, but I would say I tend to have a blend, which includes sometimes there's mentoring is going to be helpful. Sometimes going into a bit of history is helpful. Sometimes even advising or consulting, which is more about identifying and looking at a specific problem and creating a strategic solution, can be helpful for a business problem or a personal problem. But I think overall, I would say just get the best support. Invest time, money. It is worth it. And so, even I think about some of the people I've worked with and currently working with, for example, someone who came to me with a struggle about their next career position. And when we started to go deeper and focused in around his success, we realized that actually what he wanted wasn't really what he deeply longed for. And then we were able to shift rather than say, hey, this is your goal, let's just execute and get it. That's not my philosophy. My philosophy is if we go deeper, we're just going to find probably your deep longing, but that may take a bit of time, but it's worth it because I'd rather your trajectory rather than back to this short term, just kind of leaps and leaps and leaps. Another person I'm currently working with is on a transition plan because he has 40 plus staff, and he's talked about changes in leadership and succession, etc. But the depths of what we're getting into is more around him being able to have hard conversations, and that isn't just business-wise; it's actually connected into his family and some conversations that he needs to have there. So again, they're just kind of a couple of examples of just making this real for us, just giving you insight into some of the transformation work that is required, but also how different people interact. And I'm very big on what's needed in the moment. So for example, some people, I would refer them to counseling as a first point because there are certain things they ought to work with first. But just overall, I would encourage, if you want to go on this journey, just get the support that you need. And often that's being with someone, letting someone into your life and working together on that. I say Dr. Google sometimes can only take you so far. Getting tips is great, but it's just a life-on-life partnership that really shifts things, because that's when you can go really deep. Okay, so I want to help already you to start moving on success, and kind of that second point about redefining holistic success. I want to give you just an exercise that you can take away, and I believe it will help you start moving in a good direction. This quote is really core. I've adapted it from Scott Peck. He talks about mental health is the dedication to reality at all costs. I've adapted it to be success is the dedication to reality at all costs. And that is in part the core of what this webinar and this session is about, is to get beneath the shadows, is to get under the shell. And can I tell you that actually, if you choose to really live in reality and be there, it comes at a cost. It comes at a cost because sometimes it means you put at risk your reputation. Sometimes it comes with a financial cost. Sometimes it comes with a cost that, you may not have it all together. And for some of us who have a brand, or whether it's a business or personal brand, people know us in a certain way, we then can feel this sense of uncertainty of how will people treat me if they know the real me? And that's a really scary place to be in. But again, I'm going to keep saying it. It's what are we going after? Do we want the shell? Do we want to keep putting attention on that? Or do we want to start putting attention on the substance? And so I want to invite you to, keep looking at reality, keep dedicating yourself to reality. And here's a practice that's been really helpful for me. It's called the ideal average day, a way to experience substantial success now, like not waiting for the mountaintop experience, not waiting for the moment where there's this big deal or like business deal, or you nabbed a big client, or et cetera, But I really believe we can experience success today. And I find that this has been really helpful to kind of get to the core of what success is. And this is stuff that I work with my private clients. But this is just giving you insight to make it real. So for example, finding what your ideal average day is. So again, we're trying to get away from just these big, better moments, these one-off moments, to normal day. Like, what's your average day? And the aim for the ideal average day is to experience it 3 times a week. So this is an example for me, which is I'd love a great day, an ideal day would be to experience the presence of God, to have meaningful connection with my wife, to have laughter or play with my boys, to have a conversation where I got to help someone take a step towards greater flourishing, some form of physical movement, and learning something new. And it's not like I'm trying to get that every day, but if I could have that 3 times a week, that'd be really good. And so I just want to pass that to you, to try that exercise, like out of this session. Write it down, and please, once you've done that, feel free to email me, james@liveholistic.com, and I'd love to read it and be able to respond to you. So that is a great exercise that can be helpful for your life to kind of start to move towards that way. And a final encouragement before we close out and maybe have some questions is, things aren't often what they seem. So we can judge ourselves less and judge others less. Real progress can only be measured from a place of reality. So I'm really big on this whole idea of progression over perfection. Remember, you can't really make progress or no progress if everything's kind of like a shadow, or is that real? Is that real? But actually getting to reality and then moving from there, that's actually real progress. And the last one, I think this is such an important one, is you are a human gift worthy of love. You're not just loved because of your human gifts. I want each of you to know that. If you're listening to it right now, Wendy, Alina, Muhammad, Nicholas, Solomon, Shayna, or if you're listening back to this, you are a human gift worthy of love. You're not just loved because of your human gifts. And it's time to break free. So the shell was never meant to be the main game for each of us. There is life inside the shell. There was always meant to be life inside the egg. And if I have a picture here of a bold headed eagle and just this new life breaking forth. Wouldn't it be weird if the focus for the parent was, to make the shell look really, really good, but never nurture that shell to have life come break free? But I want to put out there and venture out to say, actually, your life was not meant to be the outer shell, but actually was to break forth. And as you work on the substance of success, as you work on the light within, that as that grows, that shell will break, and you will break free, and you will start to roam and explore, and at some point learn to soar. So in terms of next steps, if you'd like to explore, what potential partnership could look like, I'd love you to email me as well. Email me if you have thoughts about your ideal average day. I'd love to hear from you. To stay connected, I'd love you to sign up for just a free resource that I offer in my writings, just of encouragement. And you can go to liveholistic.com/newsletter. I'd love to stay connected that way. As well, just for Chamber, for the people that have come today, I do want to offer 2 one-to-one coaching experiences, deep coaching experiences. They are each like 75 minutes long. Something I only do for private coaching clients, but just for today, I wanted to offer that experience for 2 of you. And so what you just need to do is sign up to the newsletter and go to this link, liveholistic.com/Richmond. There's just a few questions there to help with that time. So the first 2 people to do that, you'll receive that. And I'm looking forward to that time together where we can actually go deep and we can actually look at your whole life and really find that next step forward for you. So thank you so much for listening in, for engaging, and open to questions and next steps. So thanks, Shayna, and everyone.
Thanks, James. As James mentioned, we have time for some questions. If you want to put them in the Q&A, if you want to take yourself off mute or raise your hand, please feel free to do that. I know I have a couple of questions that maybe I'll kick us off with. And James, by the way, I love that you have the boomerang in the background. In case people didn't know you're Australian from your accent, that's fantastic. Khadier's asking, what happened to your tech startup? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we spent time in New Zealand. I'm happy to take this offline as well. But we spent, it was really a discovery process. It was called Be Contento. It was a digital inventory app that allowed you to get a list of all your physical assets that could help you actually get pictures, help you with claim time, help you understand what you needed in terms of your contents insurance. But the awesome thing was very much about what is the stuff that you really need. So it kind of links into a bit of what we were talking about, what is contentment. And so after 2 years, I was part of a Westpac bank, and the decision was that I would set that separately outside the bank to do it as a standalone. And so at the moment, that's on pause. But yeah, that's what happened to it. Happy to chat more about that journey. And overall, I would say what I'm doing now is really Be Contento at a deeper level than just assets. So it's really looking at someone's life. Yep.
Awesome. Now, earlier in the presentation, you were talking a little bit about how like workaholism is kind of rewarded in our culture, and to some extent, so is perfectionism. And I think we all understand that can be very toxic. But, you know, thinking that we have some organizational leaders in our group today, how do you think managers and leaders within their organization can kind of quash that workaholism as the goal mentality on their own teams, and maybe legitimately promote sort of that work-life balance that we all want to promote?
Yeah, it's a great question, Shayna. I'm always going to start with the individual. Like, I think just the way, I don't know if you just call it a philosophy or just where I see change, it's always at the micro level for an individual. And so I see a leader firstly as a human being. And so if there is stuff that they are struggling with in terms of work-life balance themselves, it is very, very hard for them to actually be a proponent and an advocate, because we observe. And so someone can say the right things from a presentation, from a town hall, from a staff meeting, publicly, but our actions, most of them are subconscious. And so that's going to come out if you don't either live that and believe that. And so my encouragement and it is for someone who is wanting to make that change, start with you. Get the support you need as an individual. It's going to be beyond your professional life. It's actually going to be very personal. But once you go on that journey, you then have, I would say, at some level, the ability to invite trust and credibility. If you don't, I think people haven't had enough experiences of people not practicing what they preach, so to speak. And so that is always going to be my go-to. That's why I often work with the individual leader, because it is a tough ask. And I totally get the environment. I totally get there are things that are busy and there's deadlines and there's KPIs. But sometimes the best thing is to be able to take a pause or be able to say, you know what, we're not doing that extra thing this month. We are going to divert that attention to this because it's a priority.
Thank you so much. Well, just in the interest of time and making sure we can return everyone to their workday on time, I think we've actually run out of it. But if you have questions for James that you didn't get a chance to answer, please direct those, I think, to the email that's up on the screen right now, or you can send them also to me, shayna.f@richmondchamber.ca. James, I'd really like to thank you for your time today, for sharing some of your insights and your own experiences. I hope everybody had a chance to learn something, to take something away. I know I did. Now, coming up, I know all of you are learners, you're growers, and you're connectors. We have some future events coming up at the Richmond Chamber of Commerce, more being posted online all the time. So check out richmondchamber.ca or those great emails that we put in your inbox. On November 16th, we have our second Women in Leadership Lunch Series at O'Hare's, a very casual way to get together with a group of like-minded women at various paths in their leadership journey. That is November 16th. And then that evening, we have a Business After 5 with our hosts, Aspire Richmond. So I hope you'll come out to that. And then November 22nd, very exciting event. We have our 46th Annual Business Excellence Awards Gala at the River Rock Casino Resort Theater. So we have 30 finalists for that. That evening, we'll be finding out who our recipients are for each of our categories. And then finally, December 5th, our Strictly Networking Dim Sum. Fast networking, good dim sum, a great way to spend your late morning and early afternoon. So I hope to see you all there. Once again, thank you so much, James. We really appreciate your time, your insights, and your expertise. I hope all of you, including you, James, have a great rest of your day, and we'll chat soon.
Thank you so much. See you all.
Bye.